Okay, tonight we're doing chapter 15, and it's titled Little People. And the reason it's titled Little People is because that was my campaign button. Cranberry and white. People with a great sense of humor had a lot of fun with this. I didn't even know they were making them. There was ones called I'm a Little Drunk. I'm a Little Goblin at Halloween time. You cannot imagine, and there's a great story coming up later about I'm a Little Mother. But this ashtray was made for me by a guy named Bill Ward, who did these political gimmicks, whatever they call them. And I've had this since, actually. So I just wanted you to see when I'm talking about little people, this is what I'm talking about. It's a campaign team. Along the way to a political future, I met 3 of the best friends I will ever have. Now, I got a lot of good friends. I love my friends. As I told you before, I don't make friends, I make family. These would be 3 brothers. I don't know whether it'd be older brothers or younger brothers, but they were the best guys I ever met. Will Redfern, Larry Sullivan, both Esquires, known as lawyers, and Mike Harkins, who wasn't a lawyer. All 3 were already renowned for hell-raising against the establishment in Delaware politics, long before I met them. They meticulously helped me put together the Little People campaign. Will was my campaign chairman. Mike did all the brochures, and Larry, he made space for me wherever I needed it. It was delicious fun. We called it mind fucking. It was my new sport, and I was accumulating political influence and power. The 4 of us became a real political item in Delaware, constantly plotting political scams and planning sting operations, anything we could to beat the establishment. The camaraderie between us was incredibly high. It helped that I was running in a district where a Republican couldn't lose, even if he tried. And once the primary was over, Pete, as he was inclined to call himself while campaigning, was my only opposition, and we didn't know where the lines would be drawn. You couldn't get more establishment than Pete. He was coming from the sign as a sign of the DuPont family. When Willie laughed, everybody laughed. When Larry smiled, everybody smiled. And when Mike had an idea, everybody listened. Our budding new sport was called the Young Republicans. It was a melting pot of youthful enthusiasm and creative dissension. It was infested with a slight touch of radicalism, non-aggressive militarism, and very bland conservatism that was never understood by any of us, just preached by all, yet practiced by none. Pretty much the way it still is today. We had a conservatism that required and promoted a rigid personal standard of behavior that is hardly ever adhered to by us and always demanded of the other guy. And that's pretty much the way it is today. The regular Republican Party, also known as the senior party, had a very hard time keeping a lid on this crazy bunch of newcomers, and the membership rolls grew by the month. The senior party were big-time contributors and experienced political czars. The chief cook and bottle washer for these czars was Clay Harrison, the Republican state chairman. He was a unique, street resourceful city guy, a former labor man, a true working class champion. He secretly admired the balls of these young Turks. Nobody else did. He knew the party was run by insincere intellectuals. The establishment seniors thought young Republicans were just too loud and too damn risky to take seriously. The seniors referred to us as the crazies. Clay loved the crazies. Crazies took orders. Crazies worked on campaigns. Crazies took chances without knowing the consequences and dove in quickly without hesitation. Crazies were the true political warriors who understood each other and the consequences of the risk impulse. These crazies were warriors who laughed at each other's mistakes and very loyal to each other, win or lose. This was the general state of the group consciousness in the political forces in the state of Delaware when I joined up with this Republican conservative environment. Pierre S. DuPont IV was handsome, wore a classic establishment, intelligent-looking round glasses, was an engineer at the DuPont Company, and he lived in a $450,000 home. What a combination. During the campaign, where we'd be together, I'd always wait till Pete spoke first. Then I'd stand up and look at the crowd and say with a grin, I don't blame you for voting for this guy. I'd like to vote for him myself after I hear him talk. He's a graduate of Princeton, a lawyer, a computer whiz, a business executive. He has a historic lineage and possesses wealth beyond my imagination. But let me ask you only one serious question. How can anyone who lives in a $450,000 home understand your problems? I grin, sit down, and make a big production about putting on his button, which always said, P.S. I love you, in front of the audience. Pete, of course, wearing his own P.S. I love you button, would grab me after each campaign meeting and an imitation of Jack Benny, now Tommy, cut that out. Both of us always laughed. Pete was a good guy, much smarter than me. He wouldn't tip his mitt, but like anyone raised in a protected environment, he wasn't natural around ordinary folks. And I thought pretending to be natural was phony. To Pete, it was only strategy. Both of us knew I had more balls than a Japanese kamikaze pilot. It didn't matter if I lost the campaign. I was an unknown who lived in a dollhouse in Deerhurst. But it's another matter when everyone you know knows you, and you live in a $450,000 home on an estate. I, as any trained samurai would, invited threats and acted scandalously in public. Pete couldn't, and I knew it. He always acted the gentleman. He had to maintain an image. He couldn't say fuck and drink with the boys. Both of us loved needling each other. Finally, the line was drawn. Since long, long ago, each individual state drew lines between the haves and the have-nots. Long ago, a governor named Jerry, a New Englander, meandered a political line through the state legislature to suit his own political interest. It was so bizarre that the technique is still called gerrymandering today by most media folks. That's a very confusing way of stressing the point that those in power draw the lines, and the lines always suit those in power. All the Pauls knew full well that both young political warriors would never back down. Neither of us had much to lose by putting on a good show. The current legislature representing the district's name was Cap Benson. He was a single instrument of Damocles who was called upon to use a sword that last day in the legislative hall. He liked both of us for his own reasons. He held out his own vote in the Republican caucus on the entire redistricting plan in order to guarantee both of us a place in the General Assembly. He won. The line was drawn between the dollhouse and the mansion. Both of us now could win the general election. Both of us now had a brand new seat to run for come November. The last day of the decision, almost midnight, January 10th, before the clock strikes 12, the judges will do their own reapportionment plan according to a new Supreme Court decision. This pissed off the Pauls and the legislators more than their own petty squabbles. Under a Supreme Court ordered plan, some may end up in a brand new district all by themselves. If they don't control the drawing of the lines, their own re-election's at stake. Cap didn't give a shit. He was retiring anyway. He said publicly, I'm not running again, so I don't care how the lines are drawn.